Hi, welcome back. In this part, we're going to concentrate on this decorative trim under here. Now, I wasn't such a fan of this, so I went once again on the internet and grabbed a reference image of something I preferred. If you'd like to create this, you can use the same technique to model the exact reference, or you can find one you like more. I'm going to bring in a new reference image here, and what I'm going to do is this time I will just make this the right size. So I'm going to sort of scale it under here to the size I want the trim to be. Okay, and I'm not going to worry about complete and total accuracy. It's just more of a guideline for me at the moment, and for you, of course. So let's get that approximately the size of the trim. Let's just take some subdivisions away. There we go. So again, depending on what style of trim you picked out, or if you're going to use this one or the one I'm going to use, you can decide on how big it should be. And this for me should be about the right size. Whoops, there we go. Okay, so now I'm going to bring in the reference image, maybe a little tiny bit larger. Okay, there we go. So assign a new material to this. Once again, just a Lambert will do. And I'm going to bring in a file texture of the reference image that I found. And this one was from this table. I kind of like this curvy trim. So I've just cut it out in Photoshop to a more manageable size. And we can just put that on there. Now I can go in the front view and draw a curve around it. So before I do that, I'll just pop it on a layer of its own and turn it to a reference. This way I won't accidentally be able to select it. Okay, so let's pop into the front view and let's just hit 6 to show the textures. And now we can draw a curve around here. So I'm going to create curves, Bezier curve. Although once again, you could do with any curve really. And I'm just not going to worry about how curvy it is right now. I'm just going to flesh out the basic shape. Now I could make half of this curve and then duplicate it across when I'm finished. But I'm going to make the whole curve. A couple of reasons for that. The first one is it doesn't actually take very long. And the second one, it will give a little discrepancy around, so they won't be identical. Wood's going to warp over time, and you're going to get some slight minor differences. And as I said before, I think it all helps to increase the overall look of the piece sometimes to make it not look quite so CG. So just Control-Shift, click to close up that last point. And make sure we squared that off. There we go. Okay, now I can come in and start Control-Shift selecting these points, sort of drag them where I want, and drag the handles out, and just sort of match up the reference here. Doesn't have to be perfect. So as you can see, once again, this is a technique that will work with any sort of decorative trim that you might have picked out. Okay. And a really nice, easy way of making these, can be fairly complex moldings even. Okay, one thing I would mention that you can do sometimes with this Bezier curve and not notice it unless you're zoomed in, is if I grab the handle, let's just put this in place, if I grab the handle on this and accidentally pull it the wrong way, you'll see it creates a loop. But if you only do a small sort of adjustment, you might not see that. So make sure you are pulling the handles in the right direction. Okay, and this one's going to need some adjusting in here. There we go. And that kind of matches our reference pretty well. Yeah, pretty good. So I'm going to hit enter, which will create the curve, and you'll see it's disappeared, but actually it's just behind the reference image. So if I come in here, it's just there. Okay, so I can now hide this layer of the reference image because I no longer need it. And what we need, of course, at the moment is to turn this curve into some form of geometry. Now, In the past, we've looked at lofting between curves, just giving us a surface like this. This time I'm going to do it a different way, just to demonstrate it more than anything. So let's center the pivot. Again, modify center pivot, or just use your tool shelf. So let's have a look here what we can do. So under surfaces, we've used this loft. Let's have a look at planar. What this will do is put just a flat surface in. So I can just tell it to use its default settings, and we'll see that's going to just create this NURB surface here, which works pretty well. And then I can come along and convert this NURB surface to polygons. So modify, convert NURBs to polygons. So, and it's this one that's important. If we just go tessellate now, you know, you're going to get triangles, which is probably not what you're looking for. So modify, convert, again, NURBs to polygons. Make sure it's on quads, and depending on the complexity of your curve, you might have to monkey around with these a bit, depending on whether you want it on the control points, you want a standard fit. If I hit tessellate now, the standard fit, it's not great. It's got some issues with it. All can be cleaned up, of course. You should see there probably should be a edge in here and an edge in here. So I mean, we could take that and just run with it. It's not too difficult to fix up. But let's see what we get if we choose another option. Okay, and this time I'll try control points, and I'm pretty sure this is not going to work very well at all. So that will just give us a square box. So in this case, that's not going to do it for us. You know, I'm just showing you a few of the options you have here. Now what we could do is go to count, which will just give us a number of polygons. So if I say 100 and make sure it's on quads, this will just give us 100 polys. And this can be sometimes a better base to work with. So you'll have to make the determination yourself. I'll just work with this one because I think we've probably seen enough of that now. So let's just pull that out. So there's the NURBS surface, there is the polygon surface, and there is the NURBS curve. So we don't need the NURBS surface any longer. Let's just come in here and hide this curve. Control H. And now, you know, if we extruded this backwards at the moment, we'd have all this geometry that's not necessary on the front, and if I try and insert an edge loop, I think you'll see that it just doesn't work. Now we obviously need that a little better than that, because we're going to be cutting in a decorative trim, and this is just a mess. So let's start off by getting rid of stuff we don't actually need. So let's come in and delete these edges out. So just select all the ones that are running across here and delete the edges. And I'm just double clicking to make sure I get the whole edge loop. Okay, so now we've got a fairly evenly spaced curve here, and we're probably going to find some issues with it, because as I look around, there is what appears to be a double edge here. So there's a vertex splitting this off, and there's no edge going up. So if we go into vertex mode, there it is. Okay, so we need to fix these now. Now, depending on how much definition you want, you can just grab them and delete them wherever you find them, and in the case of this, that would be absolutely fine. So this one, for instance, is kind of flat, so I could just delete that. Let me just bring back the one I took away earlier. Actually, that's Control Z, one step too far. So this one here, we can go ahead and delete it. This one here, it might actually be holding the curve in, so if you wanted that sort of sharp point there, you can just use the split polygon tool. So just come up and put one in there and then one straight up here, and that will stop that being a broken sort of isolated vertex. But in our case, actually we don't need these, so let's come in, just make sure to get rid of them. Okay, so we're looking for unattached vertex here. There's one. Okay, there is one, and there is one. Now I should have gotten rid of all the sort of extraneous geometry, I should simply be able to run an edge loop straight across now. So it's a good way to check that we have nothing wrong, and so obviously we have something wrong. So once again into vertex mode, and if I zoom in you can see I've got another one there, so we probably have something similar over the other side. Let's check it. Can't see it. So let's try once again for an edge loop. Okay, so there must be a few of these spare verts hanging around. There is one. And let's check over here. Now here I can't really see. Aha, there we go. See the top? We've got two there. We've got a very nasty little arrangement up there. So let's, these all appear to be connected. So let's grab this and just get rid of it. And whoops, that's going to delete the whole thing. Okay, so what we need to do is select one of these, hit V, W first to move, V to snap to verts, move it up, select them both and merge them together. Okay, so we can use this merge up here on our toolbar. Right, so I just want to check the bottom corner to make sure that didn't also have a bit of a nasty one. And let's check this top corner, and I can't see anything there. So that should have pretty well fixed up this geometry now. And again, the amount of fixing up you're going to do is going to depend on how you converted this from NURBS to polygons, or from the curve straight to polygons. So, you know, try a few different methods for yourself and see which one works best for you on each piece of geometry you make. But for me, this cleanup is pretty quick. Let's just delete this edge loop we don't need, and we should now run an edge loop in all the way along and till we hit here. So we still have a problem. Okay, I can't see any extraneous vertex, but that doesn't mean that there's not one sitting on top of another one. So if I were to say start pulling some of these out, no, that one looks fine. This one is also fine. What about down here? Okay, no, that seems good. And see, there we have one. So we've got a spare vertex here. You can use vertex face, I sometimes do, to make sure you don't have extra edges and stuff. So if you pop this open, that's normally a good indication if you can see sort of a stray edge in between here of some sort of geometry malfunction. So let's come in and once again put an edge loop in. Okay, and we still have a problem over there. So let's try vertex face. No. So what we've probably got is an unmerged vertex here somewhere, and rather than trying to spend all day trying to fix it, we can select the object and hit mesh merge vertex, edit mesh merge, which will merge vertex that are on top of each other to this tolerance. So let's hit that, and now I just want to go mesh cleanup, which will get rid of any non-manifold geometry or laminar faces. Okay, and now with a bit of luck, there we go. So we had an unmerged vertex there somewhere. So, you know, it's important to just check this geometry over when you do any conversion from sort of NURBS to polygons. A lot of the time you will find some slight issues with it. I'm going to get rid of this edge because we don't need it at the moment. And this is looking a bit jagged, but we have nice spacing here, so it should smooth fairly well. And there we go. Put it into object mode so we can see it a bit better. And now, you know, unsmoothed, smoothed, not a huge difference, except this is very nice. It's got perfect quadratic geometry, and you know, we'll be able to now select all these faces and just extrude them backwards a little bit. Whoops, and I must have the smoothing on, so let's just turn that off. And there we go. Let's get a trim that's about right for us, about the right thickness. And there we go. Now if I just smooth this at the moment, it's going to collapse in on itself because it doesn't have any control edges holding it together. So now is the time when I would make the decision of whether I wanted a smoothed curve or a beveled one. Now this is pretty smooth without a smoothing operation thrown on it, but it's still a little jaggedy. So I think in this instance I'm actually going to smooth this, which means I'll need an edge loop at the top here to hold it together. I'll need one at the bottom to hold the bottom curve intact. Then I'll need a couple at the sides to hold the sides in. Okay, and obviously the further this is away from the edge, the more rounded you're going to get. So let's put one in here to stop these sides collapsing, and we should just need one in here. Because we cleaned up the geometry and our edge loop tool is now working, the edge loops we put in on this side also translated around to this side. So now when I smooth, I should just get a nice smooth trim. Okay, still with pretty simple editable geometry. Let's just move that into position, make sure it all fits up nice. Okay, and that looks pretty good to me. Now, one other thing I see on the furniture is this side trim extends outwards. So what we're going to do is just unsmooth this a second. And I'm going to come round here and just extrude. In fact, I'll actually put an extra edge loop in here. And I'm just going to select all of these faces. So let's just grab these, F11 for face mode, Q to make sure you've got the selection tool. Okay, and I'll extrude this outwards. Just run it down the back of the cabinet there. Okay, so this will be this line here, if you can see it well on the reference. Now, for me, that looks okay. Let's just get it lined up. Whoops. Wrong one. There we go. All right, fine. Okay, so now I've got that. Problem is going to be that the back of it's going to completely collapse in on itself. So we'll need to put an extra edge loop in there to stop this deformation happening. Okay, now when we smooth, you shouldn't see that any longer, and you don't. Okay, perfect. Alright, so let's do the same on the other side. So once again, we'll put edge loop in. Just to get some thickness to it, and I think that's probably fine. I mean, the detail underneath the cabinet, like these edges, probably wouldn't be mited in like this, although they might be, depending on the cabinet design. But it's very rare that I get underneath a piece of furniture and shoot upwards, so generally I don't spend too much time and attention on details like that. So let's just once again grab these faces. Whoops, that's a side face actually. Okay, and extrude outwards. Okay, we can line that up a bit better later, but that looks about fine, and we're going to need a control edge loop in there so it holds its shape when we smooth it. Okay, and let's take a look at this now. Smooth, object mode. Okay, looks great. So we've got our decorative trim, and obviously this maybe it's a little too narrow, so we'll come into the front view where we can get a better look. Go to vertex, and what I want to do is just grab a few somewhere it won't be that noticeable, so maybe, yeah, let's go to the edge here, and W to move them out, and just move them out a little bit. Whoops. Let's do the same with this edge here. Okay, in fact this one's should be fine. Perfect. Okay, so let's put our decorative trim and side sort of beading on. So I'm going to leave that for this part, and in the next part we'll come back and we'll look at putting some legs on this thing, at which point we are almost good to go. So thank you for watching, and I shall see you in the next part.